I was talking to my cardiologist a couple of years ago, and I said to him, well, what is this about fats? And he said, well, we got it wrong. I said, well, go on. He said, well, we know now it's really sugar, it's not fats. And I said, but it's been fats for, he said, 60 years. I said, well, how can the medical profession have been saying it was fats for 60 years? Isn't that, what about the science? And he said, well, you can't get funding for research that challenges the current paradigm. But this is a very good example of how a sort of groupthink among a certain group of people just says you can't think or say that. And so they say that's not possible, instead of saying we don't have a theory that could explain that, which would be a more open-minded way of approaching the problem. Now, when you think about that, this is bordering on insanity.
What do you think of when I say science? You might get ideas about modern human civilization, advances in medicine and technology, or the very information with which we define our reality. But have we somehow conflated the results of science with science itself? What do you think of when you hear terms like anti-scientific or science denier? I bet nothing good. Maybe you think about those terrible people who refuse to wear masks in a pandemic, or tinfoil hat wearing climate change skeptics. You know, one of those awful people who refuses to acknowledge facts and endangers people in the process. But again, is there some conflation going on here? Science is a method, not a belief. Are there really people who are against the method itself? Anti-scientific is actually a shorthand slur for someone who does not accept a particular series of findings that science has presumably produced. One who questions the settled science of an issue of high importance to humanity. But is it fair to call people who question science anti-scientific? Science, at its very core, is based in skepticism. The core principles of reproducibility, falsifiability, and peer review are based in the notion that any scientific finding may be incorrect. In fact, if science were human, it would probably be one of the biggest tinfoil hat-wearing conspiracy nuts of all time. It refuses to accept any information as ultimate incontrovertible truth, and it's always open to the possibility of new ideas and evidence. And of course, there's some science out there that you wouldn't consider great candidates for doubt. Water gets you wet, the sky is blue, Epstein didn't kill himself. But science is designed to never think that way. To science, the science is never settled. When you boil it all down, science is just a disciplinary tool used to discover truth. It has achieved wonders for our civilization, but it's not perfect and it's not infallible. Anyone who tells you that science is synonymous with any set of beliefs is misleading you. Science is never easy, and its results are never clear-cut. Experiments are flawed, and data is nuanced. Did you know that science has been in what they call a replication crisis for over a decade? If not, it's worth a Google. The human brain needs black and white answers, so the media, which is where most of us get our information on science, simplifies and abstracts its reporting on scientific findings. Even assuming the news has no other forms of bias, that simplification leads us to beliefs that don't quite reflect the true science behind them. But the main flaw in science is our human minds. When new evidence comes to light that conflicts with our established beliefs, we experience an effect called cognitive dissonance, the pain and discomfort associated with assimilating two or more conflicting ideas. And in fact, studies have shown that people experiencing cognitive dissonance go through a similar series of psychological processes to somebody who has lost a loved one: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then finally acceptance. So it's no wonder these kinds of discussions can become uncomfortable. But if we can move past the dissonance and focus on the information, logic, and data in good faith, then surely that'll bring us closer to a common understanding of the world. And maybe the artificial lines that divide us will begin to blur away. Because there's a name for following reason, logic, and data to its ultimate conclusion, no matter where it leads or how it makes you feel. It's called science.